This is going to be our last try on Revelation 17, and here is the beast, the beast and the woman in Revelation 17. I gave up on featuring the woman, so you have to draw her in there in my illustration. But the beast has 7 heads, and obviously of most interest to John, to the book of Revelation, are the last 2, the one that is and the one that is yet to come. So his interest is biased toward the ending, and all of Revelation is biased toward the ending. It is end-oriented, the whole book. And then we suggested that identifying the one, or identifying these 2 last ones narratively, not historically so much, or at least not at this point, but identifying them narratively, the best we could do was to say that number 6 is the one, and that about that there is no ambiguity. Everybody will agree in that number 6 is the one that is said to be one. And then we said that the other is number 7, and the other is identified in the book of Revelation, going back and forth. That would be the beast from the earth in Revelation 13. And then the beast that was and is not and is to come, that has a sort of demonic undertone. It doesn't completely have a demonic identity, but there is a conflation, sort of confluence of identities in Revelation 17 on the beast that was and is not and is to come. Okay, today I want to go over the ending of Revelation and to do a retrospective on chapter 17 and be as specific as we dare to be. And I will divide it up in three aspects of it. Reviewing the characters in the story, reviewing the story, and trying to pull out some things about the plot of the story, making a slight distinction between the story and the plot. What is the sort of problem that is being resolved? A story is being told. As that story is being told, a problem is being solved, and that is what I'm calling the plot. So that's what is up today, and we will. You can. I hope that illustration shows that there is a woman and sitting on a 7-headed beast, and the world seems quite impressed by this phenomenon. So, bracing for the end, Revelation 17:12. If one of you would read that.
And the 10 horns that you saw are 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom, and they are to receive authority as kings for 1 hour, together with the beast. Yeah, this verse, 17:12, I just wanted to point out that seems to me to fit quite poorly with a Roman imperial sort of fulfillment. If, as most critical scholars, if we go with what most critical scholars do, saying that it is the Roman imperial reality that is being featured here in Revelation 17, then this notion that the whole world would sort of come together and support a Roman imperial reality at some point in the future seems quite implausible, because the Roman imperial reality was generally seen as a threat to its surroundings. But here you see a kind of a coming together, a voluntary support for the beast here. So I think that is a weak, or that's an argument that would work much better for something beyond a Roman imperial view. Let's read this one, verses 13 and 14. And I will make 2. Yes, please. On the previous verse? Yeah. Okay. What do I make of 1 hour? Did you have to do that?
Well, there is. If you want to break it down, one could do it and say this is. You have to find a specific, chronological referent to say what length of time it is. All I would say now is that sounds like a relatively short time, prophetically speaking. But I have not prepared to discuss it beyond the suggestion that we're talking about a short time, and probably not a definite period of time, probably not a temporarily delineated, not 1 hour, literally speaking, and not a period of time that we should try to make into a sort of using a sort of prophetic time frame and say it will be that long. And you hear what I'm trying to say. So I'm seeing it more as as an expression for a short period of time. Maybe we should revisit some of those temporal issues, time designations in Revelation toward the end. Go back over them and see if there is more we ought to do with those time designations. That's the best I would do here. Let's read 13 and 14 now. These are united in yielding their power and authority to the beast. What does that suggest, that kind of expression? What do you hear there? It's kind of voluntary, isn't it? It's not forced. It's not something that is forced upon them. So there is a sense of willing unity, willing support for whatever is going on here. And then, even more important in this passage, they will make war on the Lamb. And I want to focus on that, or to pursue that phrase throughout the book of Revelation, to review its use in the book of Revelation. Who is they, though, in verses in that sentence? These are united. They will make war. The horns, and so these are united. That's the horns, right? Yeah, I think that we will agree with that. They will make war, the horns and the beast, probably. So, because these are united in yielding them their authority to the beast, they will make war on the Lamb. That could be the horns only, but let's say that it could also be the horns and the beast. So now, going from there, I'd like us to revisit the phrase, they will make war, or we will answer that question. Is this a spiritual war or a physical war? And we will address that question, but not right now. We'll do it after we have revisited or reviewed the war theme in the book of Revelation. I'd like to begin with the beginning. And the beginning is here. 3 times in this verse, in 12:7, we have either the verb or the noun for war. And unfortunately, our translators have striven to write good English rather than to sort of help us see what lies behind the text in Greek. And war, polemos, broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels had to fight 2 polemesai against the dragon. The dragon and his angels fought, a polemesein. So you have the theme of war here suggested 3 times. You see that? The word, we have that word in English too, but it is a kinder, it's sort of toned down. We have the word polemic. And what is polemic? Discussion. Disagreement. Polemical. It was a polemical situation. We use the word. So it's clearly the word that has been derived from the Greek word polemos. But in Greek, this word means war. So we could have translated this verse like this: and war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels had to war. You can use the word in English
the word war in English can be a noun, and it can also be a verb, can't it? Yeah. You could do it. So we could have made do with the same word, and that is exactly what our Greek text is doing. So to war, a war, both of these. So we could have said, and war broke out in heaven, Michael and his angels had to war against the dragon and his angels warred, with a double R. Couldn't we have done that? You agree with that? That would have been fair to do, and that would have followed the Greek text very closely. So we have the theme of war introduced here at the center of our story in Revelation 12:7, and we have many times in this long journey, we have focused on this passage as a very, very crucial passage, as sort of the center of the plot and the center of the narrative, you might say. That's the beginning. But Revelation is end-oriented. So how does it end? And all the from this verse on, this verse and all the subsequent verses referring to the theme of war are set in the context of the ending of the cosmic conflict. So 12:17 says, then the dragon went off to make war, poesai, polemon. So you have the same war theme and the same terminology used. And the dragon went off, let's just do this little detail, to make war on the remnant of her seed. I just want to pause on that one just briefly, because we had some discussion here on the identity of the woman and whether she is related, whether the woman that is featured in Revelation 17 is in some way related to the woman in Revelation 12. The dragon pursues the woman who is fleeing in Revelation 12, and a dragon look-alike beast in Revelation 17 has a woman sitting on its back. That kind of imagery and how they are related. And then you have the theme of remnant here. And it seems to me plausible to say that why is the dragon only making war on the remnant of her seed? Why isn't he making war on her seed? Why is it only the remnant of her seed? Why is there a sort of narrowing, sort of a circumscription of who is the target of the dragon's attack? Why not just her seed? Why the remnant of her seed? See, and that what I wish to suggest there is that the dragon was initially making war on her seed, and he succeeded quite well in that war. And so what remains to be done in the sort of end game is the remnant. You see what I'm saying there, Michael? You could make that implication. You could say that there was some success there, that when Revelation gives us this synopsis of the end game that will be developed much more here in Revelation 12:17, that's the synopsis of you might say the rest of the story, then that text is written knowing the rest of the story, knowing that there is that this is what remains to be done, that the dragon actually has had some success. That would be a possibility here. I want to milk the notion of remnant, because he could have said seed, but he says remnant of seed, which is a smaller, which is a fraction. It isn't all. It is the remnant. There is a war going on, and the war is not on everybody. The war is on a fraction of everybody, on the remnant, those who sort of survived the initial attack. Now this is a mopping up operation, you might say. What we're saying here is that the text knows more than it says, that there is a certain awareness of a bigger story, of details, and the text seems to be hoping that by now, as rereaders, we are also aware of the
of the elusive character of the text. It doesn't always say everything. So let's look more now. Going on from here to, this is actually a text that comes before our war in heaven text. And this is in Revelation 11:7. The beast that comes up from the bottomless pit. Which beast might that be? Well, that is the designation of the beast in Revelation 17. That's how the beast in Revelation 17 is designated, as the beast that comes up from the bottomless pit. And here this beast makes war with the two witnesses in Revelation 11. And again, it's an end time text, and the terminology is the same, making war. Now in Revelation 13:7, in more familiar territory, or quite familiar territory now, the beast from the sea was allowed to make war on the saints. And I left out something here, because that text says to make war on the saints and actually win over them, actually defeat them and to conquer them, the text says. So here we have the war theme again. And then Revelation 16 verse 14. This text is the sixth trumpet. So this is toward the end of the trumpet sequence. And here there is a coming together of the demonic spirits who go abroad to the kings of the whole world to gather them for war. For battle. Eiston polemon. Again, an expression that occurs. But you see again that the war theme that began so conspicuously in 12:7 is continued here. It's the same sort of thing, same movement, and it isn't over. It is a war that never seems to end. It goes on, and it is, assuming that this reflects reality, this reflects human reality, it certainly it reflects the story in Revelation. The war theme or the battles here go on and on. So here again then in the trumpet sequence. And then in chapter 17, in the text we have just read, and let's do it again. These are united in yielding their power and authority to the beast. They will make war. This is the future tense of the same phrase. They will make war on the Lamb. But this time, the Lamb will conquer them. Sort of in the end, the Lamb will win. For he is the Lord of lords and King of kings, and those who with him are called and chosen, and pistoi, faithful. So, we're not done. The war still goes on. In Revelation 19, retelling this thing, maybe adding something more that is still future, or maybe just telling what we have already been reading. In 19:19, then I saw the beast and the kings of the earth with their armies. Does that sound like Revelation 17? The beast and the kings of the earth, the 10 horns, the beast and the kings of the earth with their armies, gathered to do what? Make war against the rider on the horse and his army. And the final one, again, I'm critical of NRSV for not using the same word. It's better English to do variety. It's better for us if they didn't. When the 1,000 years are ended, Satan will be released from his prison and will come out to deceive the nations in order to gather them for war. Again. So we have 10 references in the book of Revelation using this war theme, using the same sort of polemos word, and highlighting this war theme. And so what are we to make of this? I just want to make one single point, one simple point here. In each of these texts, it seems like the one that is most hell-bent on fighting the war is who? It's the opposing side that just seems never to be able to stop. It was the opposing side that started it here in the beginning. In this very or more nuanced translation, war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels had to fight. That's not the translation of the NRSV, by the way. That I have changed. But that's the translation that you find in two of the most outstanding commentaries on the Book of Revelation by Charles and by David Aune. That the phrase suggests a war that was forced upon God by necessity. It was not God's idea to have war. The conflict was started by the opposing side, and then Michael and his angels had to fight against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought. So there is a sort of back and forth there, but the initial move, the first move, was made by the opposing side in this battle. So it goes on. It is really, really pervasive here, isn't it? So why doesn't the war ever end? Why does it go on and on and on? You know, and certainly the narration of this conflict goes on and on. But let's just say that the narration reflects then reality. So why can't it ever end? Here are some suggestions from my side, and I would like you to critique them or to suggest your own or to differ. Revelation's terminology suggests a conflict still in progress. I think we can say that quite safely. It's not over. The final outcome is not in doubt, but it matters how we get there. It seems that the Revelation is quite confident that God is going to win this war. In fact, already in Revelation 12, there seems to be sort of a cashing in on a war already won, on an outcome made certain by what? By Jesus, by the birth and victory of the male child, the child that was born to the woman. So there seems to be no doubt that this war will go God's way. But how you get there till the end nevertheless matters. It isn't all over, even though that seems to be settled. And my final suggestion here is that the ending will reveal what was there at the beginning. And what was there at the beginning has not yet been fully revealed. There is still something that has to come out, that hasn't yet become manifest, that hasn't yet declared itself. Yes, please. You're sort of aware of it. You're talking personally, existentially, sort of your view of present reality, that there is a battle going on. Yeah, it makes me think of the speech that Alexander Solzhenitsyn gave at Harvard for the graduation at Harvard in 1978, when he gave a speech called "The World Split Apart." That was at the time when the Cold War was still raging, and when the options that seemed available to people at that time was the option of the free world and the option of the unfree world. The free world being the Western world, and you know, led by the United States, and the unfree world being his own home country, the communist or reality in China and in Eastern Europe and in Russia and the Soviet Union. And he was contrasting the merits of the free world and the unfree world, and basically saying, to many people's consternation, none of the above. Because just at that winter electricity, New York City lost its electrical supply. Large portions of New York City lost its electricity for 2 or 3 days. And the people in New York, in those neighborhoods, they went out and did exactly what people did in Iraq when Saddam Hussein fell. They went out and looted the whole neighborhood, and there was no law enforcement that could stop it. You know, it was just a massive looting in New York City because there was no electricity.
And Solzhenitsyn was saying to the Harvard graduates that this that freedom is really shallow, when all it takes for it to show its shallowness is for the electricity to go out, and your neighborhood turns into a neighborhood of looters. So he was talking about the need that freedom is predicated on something inside people, that freedom is really quite impossible if that element inside, that restraining element inside is missing, and he was saying that it is missing. And so back to Michael's point that he feels the pressure of the forces of evil. That's exactly what Solzhenitsyn was saying. He says the last battle has already begun. We can feel the pressure from the forces of evil. And then he says, and still your magazines, your glamorous magazines and your television screens is full of smiling people and people who are lifting their glasses and saying cheers. What is all the joy about? That's what he was saying in his speech, and certainly that would fit existentially the picture of Revelation that Revelation paints of the end time. Well, revealing what was there at the beginning. I am citing this passage from the book Desire of Ages by Ellen G. White, partly because I like it, and partly because it seems to me to say the same thing that the book of Revelation is trying to tell us. I wanted to read it not to tell us how we should read the book of Revelation. I am reading it because that is what the book of Revelation is saying. I'm prioritizing the message of Revelation over this statement by Ellen G. White, but I think it is quite an interesting statement, so let's read it. After that, this is in a chapter that is kind of a time-out chapter in these 5 books by Ellen G. White, the Conflict of the Ages series. There are some time-out chapters in that series where she tries to reset the narrative. So, you know, in case we had forgotten what the story was all about, the first chapter in Desire of Ages is a sort of time-out chapter, and this chapter is entitled It is Finished. It is definitely a time-out chapter. It's a sort of reflection on what Jesus has done at the point in the story where he is still entombed. He is still in the grave. And here is what she says. Yet Satan was not even then destroyed. The angels did not even then understand all that was involved in the great controversy. The principles at stake were to be more fully revealed. And these are very suggestive phrases. Not even then, more fully. And for the sake of man, Satan's existence must be continued. Man as well as angels must see the contrast between the Prince of Light and the Prince of Darkness. So, what has happened in this conflict up till this point in the story of Jesus? Well, something has been revealed. You know, something big has been revealed. What has been revealed is big enough that it seems like God has won the war. But not everything has been revealed, it suggests here. There is still more to be revealed. So, for reasons of revelation, the story goes on. That seems to be the statement here, and that seems to me to fit quite well what we are discovering in a very hard way in the book of Revelation. Any comments here? Yes. Okay, so there is we're looking ahead and saying that one of the reasons why things are going on is to resolve every outstanding question. I think I've mentioned it here before, but the most influential theologian in the academic community in the 20th century was the Swiss-German theologian Karl Barth. And Karl Barth is quite a compelling character. And one of the points that has been raised against Barth's view, because he also sees sort of some revelation going on, but one of the problems is that when Jesus has come, there is no reason for history to go on. You know, if God has revealed himself fully
through Jesus, why does history continue? And that is not fully answered. The book of Revelation seems to aspire to answer that and saying there is a reason for history to go on, even for suffering to go on, or for these wars to go on. Was there? Yes. Well, that's very nice. I don't think you could all hear that. Dr. Thompson is saying that we have to take the story back to Genesis, where there is a breach of a relationship where the serpent introduces an alienation between God and human beings, and that the whole rest of the project, the whole rest of the story is a story attempting to achieve reconciliation, attempting to overcome that alienation, and that the scope of that scope of the reconciliation there is cosmic. It is for not just for human beings. It is in heaven and in earth, as you see in Colossians and other texts. And he also referred to John Stott, who has tried to simplify the whole story by saying that it is a story of reconciliation. I think that works very well. Well, you're asking a very relevant question, it seems to me. What role would the Holocaust have? What does the universe, what are they saying now? The Holocaust. In my course on God and human suffering, and I think that's true for my colleagues here too, that the Holocaust, of course, is an unavoidable subject in a topic on human suffering. And other genocidal projects, because it hasn't ended there. There have still been genocidal projects, and surely that's the kind of issue that begs for some framework. Not and what is the framework? The framework that I have been proposing to my students is the framework of the cosmic conflict. And the reality of the demonic, that there is a demonic reality, that you cannot explain these atrocities purely in human terms, but that surely is relevant. Okay, where does it end? We skipped this when we read the trumpet sequence, because I didn't think we were ready for it, and we aren't ready for it now either, but here is the deal. Revelation 17 is really just an expansion on the trumpet sequence. It is one of the trumpet angels that explains it, and the text in Revelation 17 is 16:16. They gathered them. Who is the they, by the way, in that text? They gathered them. There is an acting subject here, and Revelation eschews. Revelation, we've said many times, loves the passive voice. It says many things in the passive voice. And the passive voice does what? Let's repeat that. It anonymizes the acting subject. It makes it hard to see who is doing it, because it is in the passive voice. The subject is not clearly identified. Even as you try to revert some of the sentences in Revelation into the active voice, it is hard to find out who was doing it. But here there is no problem, because the sentence is in the active voice. And who is the they? They assembled them at a place that in Hebrew is called Harmagedon. So here it is. It's the end time battle. There is an end time battle, and I'm writing it, transliterating it with one D, without the double D here, as our text has done here. Many translations do it with a double D. Who is the they in the sentence? Well, it is the beast and the one and the other, isn't it? The three forces, the triumvirate. What did we call it? The malevolent triumvirate. The malevolent triumvirate of the beast, the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. And they are the acting subject, and they work through these spirits that look like frogs, and together this reality assembles everybody at a place that in Hebrew is called Armageddon. So having reviewed the theme of the war, the cosmic conflict theme in the book of Revelation, as we have just reviewed it, seeing it in chapter 11, chapter 12, chapter 13, chapter 16, chapter 17, chapter 19, chapter 20, having reviewed that cosmic conflict theme, seeing it lead up to this event, this is not necessarily the absolute final battle, even though there is a very good student of the book of Revelation who is a graduate of the School of Medicine. He's retired, and he comes to visit me when he comes for the APC conventions here at Loma Linda. He thinks that Armageddon is after the millennium. Most interpreters think that Armageddon is a battle before the millennium, but there is an end orientation here. So let's just say that the end, to some extent at least, is the Battle of Armageddon. Now, in light of the cosmic conflict theme, where is the Battle of Armageddon? How do you locate the Battle of Harmagedon in the story? How should we do that? Not geographically. That's what we in medicine call a pertinent negative, which is a very important tool when you try to come up with an explanation. So you don't want to locate it geographically. So how are you going to do it then? When I was a student at Middle East College in Beirut, Lebanon, there was a person who worked as a high official in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. He was responsible for training preachers, and he preached a rousing sermon up at the college on the Battle of Armageddon, and just trying to fire us up as a student body by saying that the Battle of Armageddon would be fought as a physical battle 200 kilometers south of us, south of where we were, tomorrow, or in our immediate future. And he was really. Did you remember that? Were you there? You were absent that evening. Well, but Dr. Testerman has now ruled that out. It wasn't there. We could have a long discussion on it, but I'll just share this with you. In my view, Harmageddon is best reflected in the concept of Harmoed, the Mount of Assembly, in Isaiah 14:13. Now, the other candidates for the Harmageddon location, although thinking, you could say it figuratively, you don't need to say it geographically, even with these other locations. The other candidates are Mount Megiddo, that this is the plain next to the Megiddo mountain, and that the battle in view, this has been argued to some extent by two leading interpreters in our community, Dr. Hans Larondel and John Pauline, that the battle is that what you should have in mind is the kind of showdown between the forces of good and the forces of evil that happened on Mount Carmel, where the good side made fire come down from heaven and so on. That would work. So the Moed, or the Magedon, this part of the word, the Magedon, is a misspelling of Megiddo. But it is a misspelling whatever you do with it. See, nobody can get this right by spelling the word right. You just have to theorize something. You just know that there is a mountain. The Har is unambiguous. That means mountain in Hebrew. But the rest of the phrase is ambiguous, even in the best of times. And my bias is definitely that the mountain in view is the mountain of mountains, the mountain of assembly, the mountain of God, from where the cosmic battle begins, because the contested territory in the cosmic battle is not Megiddo or this or that.
The contested territory is which territory? Here it is. The contested territory is what? The contested territory is the place where God sits. You know, and the method to contest that territory is to make a claim against God and the kind of person God is. So I think that is this sermon today in a university church about a door was open in heaven and there was a throne in heaven and somebody was sitting on the throne. Isn't that the message today? So there is a throne, and the contested territory in the cosmic conflict is that throne where the cosmic rebel says what? I belong there. He says, this is where I want to sit. You know, I want to sit on that throne. I want to sit in Isaiah 14:13, that he wants to sit in the Mount of Assembly and raise his throne above the throne of God and make himself like the Most High. So, in narratival terms, the Battle of Harmagedon then would be sort of, it's the same war, it's the same goal. It is the same aspiration. This is the contested territory. You know, who will sit there in the Mount of Assembly? And if we are on the right track, then there is this prospect. Will the cosmic rebel at last sit there? You see. Will he at last, will that to some extent succeed? Or at least to some extent that in the sort of revelatory, revealing action of God is to allow that person, because he didn't, how did he say it? He posted billboards all over town. He posted billboards all over heaven saying, I want to sit there. Didn't he? He didn't post a single billboard. He said in his heart, I want to sit there. He did not make that intention public. The only thing he made public was what? That the person who was sitting there was unfit for office. That's what he made public. He did not say, I want to sit there. So there could be some, in a sort of revelatory trajectory, there could be some logic for God to allow the cosmic rebel to actually reveal that that's what he wanted to do. And the Battle of Armageddon then, if it is Harmagedon, the Mount of Assembly, that is being contested, then he will actually sit there. The logic of our text in 2 Thessalonians is that logic. It's even more explicit there. So with some help from that text, I think you could make that inference. Well, I'd take it even more radical and say that God lets him sit in that chair to show that he doesn't belong in that chair. That is, that would be, yeah. And that seems to be the logic of the whole project, that he is to some extent in a position of command to reveal what he is up to. So if we could run through the last ones here. There is then in this endgame, there is broad but short-lived support for this deceptive action at the end. And he said to me, the waters that you saw where the whore is seated are peoples and multitudes and nations and languages, meaning that these people seem to go along with it. They seem to be subject to this force. And then the alliance unravels. Your eyes run faster than I can read this. And then there is a confluence of interest between what the evil forces are trying to do and what God wants them to do. God wants them to reveal what they want to do, in a sense. God is not afraid of their intent, because their intent will actually serve his purpose, and that is quite striking. And then the woman that you saw is the great city, and so on. Let's do the characters now and summarize these things. The woman I will propose here is religion, and to some extent religion, the church. The waters are people. The beast that was and is not and is to come is the state, but the state in a demonic configuration. The one
has a Roman connotation. The other we have not identified because it is a future phenomenon. Adventist pioneers thought that the other was the US. They did. If the other is the sea beast, or the beast from the earth, then that was the theory of earlier Adventists, and we will have to do some critique of that before we finish. The 10 kings are world powers. So these are the characters in the story. The story itself runs like this. The dragon makes one last attempt to win the war that began in heaven. He works through surrogates, pursuing a strategy of imitation. The woman in Revelation 17 is related in origin, but not in character to the woman in Revelation 12. The imperial reality of John's day persists till the end of time. He never sees the Roman imperial reality disappearing. He sees the Roman imperial reality transformed but persisting. It never disappears. At the end of time, there will be a period of preternatural. Preternatural is supernatural when bad powers do it. So it's subterranean, or the preternatural is evil. Supernatural could be good or evil, but here I use the more specific term. There will be a period of preternatural political and religious unity. The unity will be broken by a revealing action. This is to Daniel's question to some extent. By a revealing action, the waters will dry up, and the woman will be destroyed by those who previously supported her. And those who previously supported her were the state powers and the demonic reality to some extent too. The plot, very quickly, confronting an opponent committed to deceit. God pursues a strategy of revelation and not a strategy of force. God's way is to allow the cosmic rebel to do his will, for God has put it into their hearts to carry out his purpose. And as they are carrying out their purpose, they are in fact carrying out God's purpose too, because it is in God's strategy to let that revelation happen. The cosmic rebel and his allies go to fill in the blank destruction. Try it. Say it. Self-destruction. Is it true? The cosmic rebel and his allies go to fill in the blank. Self-destruction. Eternal destruction. Well, there are these two texts that say that he goes to destruction. They go to destruction, and it sounds like the momentum for that destruction, the sense of inevitability here, is an inevitability built on inside the project itself, inside the evil project itself, that it is not destruction inflicted on them from outside. It is the direction of the whole project. He goes to destruction, and not necessarily just to be destroyed from someone else. From its own weight, it falls by evil falling by its own hand. That's what it says. And yes, exactly. I found this one in the New Yorker. It relates to the plot in the book of Genesis. It's in some ways back to Dr. Thompson's question here earlier, where the serpent starts a rumor that is false. And of course, we don't see our cosmic rebel. We don't see Satan investigating whether his rumor is true. But you get the idea. I am trying to see if there is any truth to the rumor I started. History, theology, the Bible, the book of Revelation is, sharply focused on the rumor that was started to find out if that rumor was true and to expose it. And need I say it? It wasn't true. The rumor of God's arbitrariness and so on. Well, we will meet again in 2 weeks then, on November 27th. And I know we didn't get to discuss some things here, but we will move into Revelation 18 when we meet again. We're going to consider ourselves somewhat done